Okay, now, y'all, I'm not playing. Okay. We're gonna move on to like more of these terms. Biconditionals and definitions. So we've got several examples to do today. Do y'all remember y'all probably don't remember last week, but it was converse, inverse, contrapositive. Do y'all remember all that? Yeah, we will, if we don't remember it, it's fine. We will go over it again. I need to see when y'all's quiz is. Did I tell y'all your quiz? It looks like your quiz may be like Thursday. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I listened to another paper class 1-5, but I didn't miss that day. I don't have that paper. Did y'all not do anything Friday?
Oh yeah, we did something. We did. Is it not over there? I'll look and. We do paper every day. Didn't y'all do the inverse contrapositive? Was it the one y'all finished? The one y'all already had though. Yeah, right. Kennedy, I think you have the paper from Thursday, and we just did the last few problems. So I'll look at that Lexi later and see what that's about. Okay, let me move on, y'all, because I am recording for those that are not here. So let's get this done. We're gonna start with. It's using the same thing as last week. So notice, you don't see it yet, but it'll have the word, the converse, okay? So the conditional statement, they give us a statement. And they want to know, is this statement true? Then they want us to look at the converse. What do I do for the converse? You just flip it around, and let's see if the converse is true. And if it is, then we can write it as a biconditional statement. It has the words if and only if. So you're saying if it's true going forwards and you flip it and it's true that way as well, then it's true both ways. So you write it if and only if. I'll show you. Okay, so it says what's the converse of this true statement? Okay, so if the sum of the measures of two angles is 180, then the two angles are supplementary. So what's the converse of that? That's what I have to start with. Let's flip it around. What is it?
If angles are supplementary, the sum of measurements is 180.
Okay, is that true? Yeah, it's true. So they already told us the first statement is true. So if we flip it around to if the two angles are supplementary, then the sum is 180. That would be my converse statement. I'm flipping it. Is that true? Yes, it is. So since they're both true, we can rewrite it as a biconditional. Okay? So a biconditional would say the sum of two angles is 180. See how I'm dropping the if and then? I'm changing it. Okay? The sum of two angles is 180, and this is how I write if and only if. This is what we did in college when I had this class. That means if and only if. It's way less words to write. Okay, if and only if the angles are supplementary. See how I combine the two statements? The angles are supplementary. So that is a biconditional. If my statement is true, my conditional statement is true, and if I flip it around and that converse is true, then I can write it as a biconditional, an if and only if. Do we get this? I told y'all it's a lot of words. Okay? It's not science, it's more English right now. So the sum of two angles is 180, if and only if the angles are supplementary. And that should make sense. Because if they're supplementary, they're 180. If they add to 180, they're supplementary. Okay. Can I erase that, or does anybody need to write that? Do we understand what a biconditional is? We do. Okay.
You just take out the if.
Yep, and you change it with an if and only if. Only if they're both true. So let's look at, see, and that's how they wrote it. They wrote all the words if and only if. I just put the IFF. It's an abbreviation. Okay, so they're telling me, all right, this statement is true. What's the converse of it? If two angles have equal measure, then the angles are congruent. So what's the converse of that?
Take a guess here.
Okay?
Ooh. You got that?
It's this bottom. She already did one. It's the bottom one. All right, Cannon, switch it around. So let's go to the end of the sentence. So you're going to say, if the
Angles are congruent.
Then
the two angles have equal measure.
yeah, that's the converse. You switch it around. Is that true?
No. No. Yeah, it's true.
If they're, what does it mean to be congruent?
Also.
They're equal. So you're saying if the two angles are congruent, then they have equal measure. That is also true. So can we write a biconditional? We can write, what is a biconditional again? If and only if. So we would say two angles have equal measure.
If and only if they're congruent.
If and only if they're congruent. Yeah. And two angles, I don't even care if you abbreviate a little bit, okay? Have equal measure if and only if they are congruent. Okay? Do what?
This whole test just needs to be multiple choice.
I don't know that makes it any easier, honestly. Okay. Are we okay with this? And if and only if. Yes. Cannon's got this.
I am, Miss Man. I got that one. I'm trying to look at
Okay.
It's congruent.
All right. Now, let's see what our next thing. I've got 4. Okay. This one is, I think that's saying what a biconditional statement is. It's got if and only if. Okay. So, what are two conditional statements that form this biconditional? Okay. Array is an angle bisector if and only if it divides an angle into two congruent angles. So I'm going backwards. I'm starting with an if and only if, and now how do I write them? With what two words? If and then. And then I've got to switch it. So I've got to write a statement and do the converse. Okay, so what would be one of my if-then statements?
If an angle divide, or
If array is an angle bisector, then it divides an angle into two.
Okay, that one's right. What one were you saying?
if it divides an angle into two congruent angles, then arrays an angle.
Bisector. And don't forget some of your words. And make sure our statements make sense. So I'm going to write these out. It'll take me a second. So if a ray, the first one's always easy. It's just in order. If a ray is an angle bisector, then it divides an angle into two congruent angles. Is everybody okay with that?
Guys, Holloway.
It takes forever to write. Okay. Now we switch it around. And Lakin would say, this is the hard part though. If it divides an angle, if what divides an angle?
If array is
Okay, there you
angle
go. So
two
be a little bit
congruent
more
angles.
specific. So he's saying if a ray divides an angle into two congruent angles,
then the ray is an angle bisector.
very good. Or then now you can use the word it if you want. Then it is an angle bisector, or then the ray an angle bisector. Okay, so see y'all, it's kind of the same thing back and forth. So we went from if then statements, wrote if and only if. We went from if and only if statements, writing if then. To right now, or in your class? Yes, because Chloe is not here. Are you gonna be there?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I was just gonna tell you, remind me if you were gonna be there.
I'm not set.
Oh.
He was in my second week.
What are you getting clocks like for?
I drew on my desk. I drew a math problem on my desk.
Okay. Yeah, I have all the copies. So, but yeah, I do plan to record because she asked me to.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I just thought you had that. That needed that. Looks like y'all are all writing. Y'all are all napping today. Okay. We'll do one more of those. I'm hoping y'all are getting this. I can't tell if you're bored, tired, sick. are clueless
I'm
or if
sick.
it's easy.
I'm getting
I
it.
feel like I'm getting it.
Okay, I can't tell because it's just blank stares. All right.
At
Two
least you're not
numbers.
yelling at us for it, though.
What?
So at least you're not yelling at us for
Two numbers are reciprocals if and only if their product is 1.
If two numbers are reciprocals, then their product is 1.
Okay, what's the other one?
If two numbers' product is 1, then they are reciprocal.
Very good. Okay, so, and it says, what are the two conditionals that form this? So you can tell if you're going from if and only if, you're going to write the if then. Do I need to write it out or can I just say them again? I'll just say them. Okay, Cannon, that way you'll get this. The two statements are, if two numbers are reciprocals, then their product is 1.
I remember that.
Then we'll go backwards. If two numbers' product is 1, then they are reciprocals. Those are the two statements. I just said it so the camera could hear me a little bit better over here. Okay, are we good with that? So our next thing, that's the first half of today's lesson. If and only ifs, biconditionals. All right, the next thing is knowing if something is a good definition or not. I think these are, I wouldn't call them fun, but I think these are better than what we were doing. So if you were to write or have a good definition on something, and I'm reading right through here in these check marks, it needs to be clearly understood, okay? It's precise. It avoids words such as sort of, almost, things like that. And it's reversible. What does reversible mean?
Reverse it.
Reversible. Like you could flip it around. A good definition would be reversible. So where it's like the converse is true, kind of like what we were doing. Does that make sense? It might not. You might not have a clue what I'm talking about. But anyway, we're gonna look at something and see if it's a good definition. Okay. So is this definition of quadrilateral reversible? And if it is, write it as a biconditional. So yes.
So you could, this is the thing we just did, so you could, correct?
Yes, so you want to see, it says a quadrilateral is a polygon with 4 sides. So reverse it, or do the converse. What would that be?
A polygon 4 sides of quadrilateral.
Okay, so are both of those things true? Yeah, and if you don't know, like quadrilateral, it means 4 sides. Quad, okay? So both ways that works. So this is reversible. So I would say, yeah, so let's write it as a true biconditional. How would you write it? What is a biconditional? What word does that have?
Case.
If and only if. Okay? So how would you write this using if and only if?
I need H.
A
Quadrilateral is a polygon if and only if it has 4 sides.
Or a quadrilateral, or the figure is a quadrilateral if and only if it's a polygon with 4 sides.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Let me see what they say.
And only if.
This is how they wrote all theirs. So right here, a figure is a quadrilateral if and only if it's a polygon with 4 sides. Sometimes they're kind of hard to figure out. Like I had to add the word figure in there. Okay. So what did you say?
I forgot.
Okay, so the biconditional statement has the words if and only if. Let's see this one. A straight angle is an angle that measures 180. So let's switch it around. If it's an angle that measures 180.
If it's an angle that measures 180, then it's a straight angle.
Okay, and is that true? That's true. So it's reversible. So how can I write this as a biconditional if and only if?
An angle is straight if and only if it measures 180.
Very good. See how you kind of had to change it to make your sentence make sense? So he said an angle is straight if and only if it measures or has a measure of 180 or measures 180. Okay? So you kind of had to change your words a little bit. Are y'all okay with these so far? That's the first 3 problems.
Never
Do we-
give geometry.
A geometry, it's totally different. This is the ones I was waiting on. Okay. You have to determine which one of these is a good definition and which ones are not. And if it's not a good definition, maybe find a counterexample. This one just says which one is a good definition. So let's see. A fish is an animal that swims. you want to reverse it. An animal that swims is a fish. Is that necessarily true? Somebody tell me an animal that swims that is not a fish.
Shark.
A jellyfish.
Dolphin.
Seahorse.
Okay, a turtle. Okay.
It seems fun.
turtle.
Right, a turtle swims. Is that a fish? Some of those I'm questioning what's a fish and what's not. I don't know.
A sea sponge and a sea storm.
So, do we understand that? So, is that a good definition? No, because remember I said you need to be able to reverse it. Okay, rectangles have 4 corners. So, if it has 4 corners, is it necessarily a rectangle?
No.
No. So, that's not a good definition.
Square.
Giraffes are animals with very long necks. Is there another animal that has a very long neck?
Not much like a giraffe.
No.
Flamingos have very long necks.
Okay, what?
Flamingos.
Flamingos, yeah, an ostrich does not have long necks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know the guys that shove their heads into the ground when they're
Anyway,
frightened.
so anyway, there's other things that could work. So that's not a good definition. You want it to be reversible. A penny is a coin worth 1 cent. What's a coin that's worth 1 cent? So is that a good definition? Yeah, and it's exact, right? There is nothing else that could be in that. Do we understand a good definition? Yes. Okay. Let's see if we have another one of these. A square is a figure with 4 right angles. That is true. Is there another figure that has 4 right angles that's not a square? A rectangle. So is that a good definition? No. You would need, what do you know about a square?
It has 4 sides.
That are the same. Does this say that? We're lacking that information. So that's not a good definition. Do we need any more?
No, man.
Y'all just want to kind of try these and see what you know and what you don't know. It's okay if you don't understand everything, y'all. As you go through these, I can help you.
Ooh.
A few notes. Listen. I'm not going over all these, but on, let's see, which ones did I want to go over? Okay, like number 5. Number 5 says, y'all listen, 2 conditional statements. That means you should have an if-then and then another if-then. There should be 2 answers on number 5. If you only put 1, you only did half your work. That's an if something, 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 then you reverse it and you put the other if, then. That's your 2 statements, okay, on number 5. Let's see. A biconditional, if this is true and it says write it as a biconditional, that's an if and only if statement. So if it's true, your answer should say something and have the words if and only if. Canon, also on number 7. If this is true, and just a hint, if it's perpendicular, it intersects at 90-degree angles. If it intersects at 90-degree angles, that means it's perpendicular. That's what perpendicular means, that something crosses at 90-degree angles. So if all that was true, like I just said it was, your answer is a biconditional. Has to have the words if and only if. Okay? On number 8, if it's not a good definition, then it says you have to find a counterexample. Make sure you're doing all the parts. Don't just write, no, it's not a good definition, and then leave it. Okay? Number 12. Okay? Remember, it says write the converse. Okay, so you'll do that. You're going to tell if it's true or false. Okay? If it's true, then you'll write an if and only if. But if it's false, then you'll give a counterexample. So there's 2 parts to that one. Okay? Make sure you just do all the parts to it. Sounds like a foreign language, doesn't it? If and only if, biconditionals, counterexamples. Like it doesn't even sound like math. I promise y'all, once we're done with this chapter, like all this type of stuff is over. Okay.
What is it called when like the 2 lines don't intersect with the
Skew. S-K-E-W. Skew lines are not parallel and they won't ever intersect. That's actually used twice on this paper. Skew lines is used twice on this paper.